Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger coming to you live from the WHP 580 studio. 540-0580, 540-0580 is a talk line number. Do you have a legal question, legal concerns? The show where I answer your legal questions. Want to let you know later in the show and then through the bonus hour, we're going to be joined by attorney Fred Haight, who is a workers' compensation attorney. So if you have a workers' compensation question, you know somebody who's been injured at work, or you're an employer who has somebody injured in your workplace and you have some questions about the workers' compensation law, hold those for later in the hour and then through the bonus hour. But go ahead and write that number down, 540-0580, and you call in. Also want to let people know, as you know, my firm, Mike Palermo in my office, represents Anne-Marie Rosepink, who was sentenced yesterday along with Mike Vion. As you might have noticed, Mike's client is not in jail and is out pending appeal. And now we're helping with the defense team working on getting Mr. Vion out. I'm confident the Superior Court or the Supreme Court will be releasing him in the next couple of days. Highly unusual, and this is my commentary, and obviously I'm associated with the case, highly unusual in my experience for somebody not to get bail pending appeal when the offense underlying is non-violent and the person is not a flight risk. Neither of those things apply to this particular case. So I would suspect the appellate courts will have to overturn the trial judge, but that's just my speculation. I have clients who are serving much longer sentences or arguably even violent sentences who have been given appeal on bail. And so my concern is that it really wasn't the kind of case where you deny a person appeal bail. And for those out there like, well, he's guilty. First of all, you didn't see the trial. Number two, the jurors themselves have come out and said that they didn't expect such harsh sentencing and that they felt that these were just the bit players, that in fact the Attorney General's office has gotten guilty pleas from the masterminds already and had them testify at trial. And so, and also they acquitted him of most of the charges. So that's my commentary on that. 540-0580, you call in with your legal questions. We're going to be on live for an hour, and then we're going to go into the bonus podcast. We'll have Fred Haight, workers' compensation lawyer, coming on. So any other legal questions, shoot them out. Damien, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger. Damien. Are you there, buddy? No? I don't know where he went, Shane. We'll hang up on him. Maybe he'll call back. Damien, if you can hear me, you got to pay attention so we can talk. What else did I want to tell you guys? On weekend appointment, I did get a question. Somebody wanted to know about what if you don't have a will and you're in an auto accident and everybody passes away and it's everybody in the family kind of thing. Well, the short answer is without a will, it's going to be very hard to figure out who gets what and what the intent of the various parties are. So the short answer is there's mechanisms in the law which will allow us to try to sort things out, but it's not good, particularly if a lot of the lineal descendants, mom, dad, and the kids all were to die in the same car accident. It's going to create some complications and the question about who died first so that we figure out which way things go. And a law school professor could probably come up with a good problem based on that, because you can imagine scenarios where one relative dies before another. That could actually make or break somebody else's interest in the estate, if that makes sense. The caller button was down. That was, I don't know who was in the studio who does that. Damien.
Yes.
All right. Damien, somebody, I think it's these doctors that come in the morning, because you can't trust doctors with equipment. And they like to turn the caller button down for reasons unknown to me.
Because they know an attorney's following them.
Probably.
Carl, I have a question about a private nuisance.
Yeah.
It's a tough standard in Pennsylvania, and I'll just give you the situation quickly. I live in a residential area, and there's some private property behind my home. I live in a condominium association.
Okay.
On the private property, there are ATV riders, and it's not once a week, it's not twice a week, it's almost every night of the week, certainly a lot of times on the weekend. And I know probably the ATV riding in and of itself is not a private nuisance, but does the frequency possibly give light to a private nuisance?
Yes, and let me put it to you this way: if you run a chainsaw, I'll give you chainsaw is a good example. And let's say you go out and you cut up some wood in your yard, and you do that, one weekend every few months for a couple hours at a time. The neighbor's probably going to complain, his chainsaw wakes me up, or his lawnmower, or the guy who snow blows in the middle of the night and does the driveway and wakes up the neighborhood. But it's an infrequent event, and it's a tolerable noise level. Now, absent noise statutes or ordinances in the township, etc., which might apply, assuming there's not, the occasional activity that makes a lot of noise, like a chainsaw, etc., is not really going to be considered a nuisance. But there are nuisance cases where people repeatedly do an act or an event or something that creates loud noise. So I had a client who had a neighbor who had a propensity for revving the engine in the car. Mm-hmm. And that does create in the law an ability to restrain them. There's no reason, it's okay to rev your car once in a while. You may be checking the engine or something along those lines. But to do it 20 times a day, every day of the week at all different hours makes no sense. And it's going to rise to the level of nuisance. The frequent operation of the ATVs could be a nuisance.
Okay. All righty. I appreciate your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, nuisance lawsuits in general, and we're using that term, a nuisance is something that bothers you. And there's a lot of famous nuisance cases. In fact, one of the most famous ones involves Sun City and the Spar Ranch, which was a feeding lot for cattle. And they fed approximately 20,000 cattle at a time there. And as you can imagine, 20,000 cows make a little bit of an odor. So this guy named Del Webb, who was the famous developer who did Sun City out in Arizona, started building this giant development. And as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, it got closer and closer to the feedlot. And he couldn't sell. So some of the people who bought homes in there towards the one side were complaining about the feedlot. And, of course, that made it hard to sell other ones. So he sued the feedlot and said that they were a nuisance. And, of course, as my good friend Bob Durgan would go crazy about, the feedlot said, no, you came to the nuisance. We were here long before you were here. You built in our direction, and it was foreseeable. And it was one of the seminal cases where the court held that even if you come to the nuisance, it may still be a nuisance, and they restrained the feedlot from operating on the land they were on. But they required the developer to buy a new spot for them and to pay all the costs associated with moving them if he wanted to clear his land of the odor from the feedlot. Very famous case. The idea, though, of a private nuisance is just that there's something going on the other property that's otherwise lawful but provides a nuisance. So there's another one out there that you read when you're in law school involving a cement plant, and the dust keeps settling on the neighbors' cars and things. And it's not an occasional thing. As long as the wind's blowing in a certain direction, the dust settles on everybody's stuff. And, of course, you get a restraining order. And, of course, you can't run the cement plant if the wind blows in a certain direction. And that's the compromise. 540-0580, 540-0580. I'm Carl Rominger answering your legal questions here on WHP 580. I'll see you after the break. Five 540-0580 talk line number. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions live on the air, and then during the bonus hour we'll keep the phone lines open from 3 to almost 4 o'clock, so you can keep calling in at 540-0580. And what else do I want to tell you? I get on Facebook, and of course a lot of you have become my friends on Facebook, and I really enjoy that. I try to post some interesting things to it, but I get a lot of folks who will send me a answer our bet kind of question. We're sitting somewhere debating. So Shane asked me today, what's the difference between a DUI and a DWI? And that reminded me of those kinds of questions I get. And the answer is, in Pennsylvania, there's no distinction. Some states call them DWIs. Some states call them DUIs. Some states have both, and they're just different gradings. One's a more minor one. So, for instance, I believe in New York, a DUI is the worst one. A DWI is the less serious form of drinking and driving. Here we just have different levels and punishments, but we call it all the same thing. So it's kind of a state-specific thing. One of the other good ones I had was, is it illegal, if it's illegal to sell cigarettes to a minor, is it illegal for a minor to buy the cigarettes? Because there's a myth out there that it's only illegal to sell them, but they can legally possess them and smoke them. And the answer is no. There is a subsection that allows them to be punished for buying them, smoking them, and possessing them. Kathy, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hello.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Carl. Carl, I'm wondering if you can point me in the right direction to find out the state laws governing homeowners associations.
There is some uniform condominium laws, and I'm trying to think. I think you're going to find those. Oh boy, what title? I don't know what title I'm going to find those in off the top of my head. But there are some laws that affect the chartering and the fill-in provisions.
Okay. Well, I live on a golf course, and we've got a condominium association that, of course, we pay our homeowners association dues. And they are stating that we all have to put lattice work around the bottom of our deck.
Okay.
And whether we want it or not, and we have to pay for it.
Right. They can do that, probably. That's probably the short answer.
Okay.
The long and short of it is, and this is where I always go nutty, a lot of, and I'm going to editorialize for 1 second. I don't know if you used a lawyer when you bought your property or not.
Yes, I did.
Hopefully the lawyer, before you sign the condominium bylaws and the acknowledgement of the homeowners association, et cetera, explained to you that all that stuff's going to be binding down the road, including the ability of the homeowners association to restrain uses of the property and require various kinds of decorations, to make assessments.
Right. But when I bought the property, it said that the homeowners association or the condominium association was responsible for all external features.
Okay.
So in other words, the roof, the building, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct. And the next question is, though, can they make an assessment on you? Because what happens is they probably are. But what they're going to say is, we'll let you pay for it yourself. What we decided to do is have everybody bear their own costs rather than assess it to everybody as a special assessment. But I don't know. Do you participate in the meetings and whatnot?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I happen to be the water commissioner for the group. But I'm getting tired of it. Is the board of directors is 3 people.
Right.
And they want to put these up because of a skunk problem.
Okay.
We're in the country. Guess what? There's skunks in the country.
Right.
And putting lattice work up around the bottom of the decks is probably not going to help the skunk problem.
Not ultimately, particularly since they're a very good burrowing, digging animal. And if they really want in, they'll just simply dig underneath it.
So what I was wondering is, under the state law, are there certain things that have to be voted on by the general group, or can these 3 people just make whatever decision they want to make and make it stick? That's what I'm looking for.
You know what? If you post this to weekendappointment.com, I'll dig it up for you and get you the Condominium Act.
Okay, good. I do belong to your weekend appointment group, so I'll put it on there.
Good, and I appreciate that, because that'll allow me to answer it, and then we'll have it up there, and I'll find it. I dug into the Condominium Act not too long ago for a fella that had a similar issue, and I remember coming to the conclusion that they wanted to assess roofs. They had to do something that was very expensive, but it looked like they could do it. So my recollection seems to be that, yes, they probably can, but they've got to very carefully follow their own rules, and whether or not that requires more than just an executive vote for an assessment, or effectively what's an assessment, I'll have to get back to you on.
Well, my attorney had told me that basically what the state says is that if you belong to one of the associations who actually own the exterior of the property,
right,
that if you cut the roof off and shake, turn the house upside down and shake it, everything that falls out is yours, and everything that stays belongs to the homeowners association. That's
generally true. There's the magic point in the wall. I forget where that is, but the short answer is, whether they own it or not, it's a different question whether they can assess you to repair it or not.
Got it. Okay, so they can make assessments on anything they want to. Then I think we need to figure out if we don't need more of a referendum than 3 people to make these decisions.
Right, and that's what my suspicion is, that they can't make those by fiat. They probably have to put that up for a vote. But I've got to look it up. I would be remiss to answer you off the top of my head on that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. 540-0580. I can't know them all off the top of my head, can I? Gene, you're on WHP. Gene,
yes.
how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad.
My question is, Does Pennsylvania still honor common law arrangements?
Well, I'm laughing because the short answer is yes, but only if they were effective before a certain date.
Really?
And the reason is our legislature, our courts were battling out whether we were going to recognize them or not. The Commonwealth Court said we no longer did. That case never got appealed, so that was the last word on it. The Superior Court, jealous of their jurisdiction, said, actually, we decide family laws. So Commonwealth Court, you may have decided that in the context of the narrow area of workers' compensation law, but we're telling you that there still is common law marriage. And the legislature rushed and passed a bill signed by the governor saying we're abolishing common law marriage going forward from a certain date. But if the common law marriage was established or had its origins before that date,
and you don't know what the date is?
I want to think it's 2004 off the top of my head, but it could have been a couple of years after that.
Okay, and then the other thing, this couple were divorced,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're living together. And if the husband should inherit something from his family, would this woman have claim to it?
Inheritance in Pennsylvania, inheritance is not marital property if and until it's commingled with the marriage. So the way we kind of say that is, if you use it to build a marital home or you put it in a joint checking account. But as a general rule, inheritance does not flow to the spouse.
Okay.
Without an affirmative, push,
okay.
so to speak.
Okay, I think that answers my question.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
540-0580. Call in with your legal questions. I'm Carl Rominger, and I'm answering them for free on the air here. Obviously, we want you to keep it anonymous, and I want to remind people that the import of the show is not to rely on, if you think your situation's like the one you just heard and you're going to rely on it, that's wrong. Go see your own lawyer. Call me. Go to my website, weekendappointment.com. Sign up. Send me an email. Call me. I don't care, but don't rely on it because every situation's different. And I go nutty sitting in court sometimes when the client's saying, well, that guy did the same thing I did, and he's getting less time or he's getting more time, and I don't understand. Saying, well, it's not the same thing because you're a first offense and he's a second offense, or he's a second offense and you're a third offense, or, yeah, but his was with accident and yours wasn't, or they're divorced, they've only been married a couple years, so the judge isn't giving them alimony, but you've been married 27 years, so the judge might give alimony. Point is, there's always little rubs and little facts that turn cases. And while the law is important, and there's lots of different laws that you can apply to any particular case and rules and presumptions and burdens, a lot of times the facts are just as important. And as you know, the factual variations available in a person's life are almost endless. So keep that in mind that what you're hearing is for general information purposes, but probably should follow up with me or someone else if you want to be sure. 540-0580. Deb, you're on WHP 580. Deb.
Hello?
Yep. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good.
Okay, I have a question for you about the trucking industry.
Okay.
My son recently, within the past year, went to a trucking firm and he got his CDL through the company and they had an agreement. I don't know what kind of contract it was that he signed, but they had said that he should work for the company for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're breaking him. It's the runs that they're getting. He's barely making it. I mean, the kid is living off of like peanut butter and jelly, and he's not able to pay his bills with the runs that they give him. He has enough to pay the lease on his vehicle on the truck. And it's an astronomical amount. It's ridiculous. It's like $973 a week or something stupid. And he has told them that if he didn't soon start getting better runs, that he would be able to make ends meet, that he was going to have to quit and leave. Well, they told him that they can attach his wages if he would go to another trucking firm. Is that true?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. What I mean by that is, what do they mean by attach his wages?
Well, they said that if he would go to another trucking firm and work for them, that they would confiscate his wages.
We'd have to see the contract that he signed, first of all. Second of all, garnishment of wages in Pennsylvania is very difficult. It's not impossible in some scenarios, but there's a few exceptions in the landlord-tenant law that now allow for it. But as a general proposition, we don't have for regular judgments wage garnishments. So while they may be able to get a judgment against him and sue him, that doesn't mean necessarily that they can garnish his wages. Is this a Pennsylvania company he's doing business with?
Actually, they're based out of Missouri, but they do have terminals in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, see, and that's why they may be telling him that, because in a lot of states you can garnish wages if you get – so somebody breaches a contract and you say they owe you money, you go to court, you get a judgment, you can garnish the wages. Pennsylvania is one of the states that doesn't have a general wage garnishment law, which is why we also have one of the lower bankruptcy rates. So I would want to see the contract he signed, and then what I would usually do is write them a nasty gram that says he's quitting and he needs to get out of it, and you didn't give him enough work and you didn't hold up your end of the bargain, and if you want to sue us, go ahead and sue us, but then we're going to sue you back.
All right. I like your attitude. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Kathy, if I can be of any help, you go to weekendappointment.com. You can get hold of me there, all right?
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, 540-0580. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Just listen to the music a little bit there, Shane. Yeah, pretty good. 540-0580. I'm going to have Fred Haight. He is a workers' compensation lawyer coming on here in a few minutes. And if Fred, if you're listening already, we're going to call you here at 45 minutes, get you on for the last segment, and then keep you through the bonus segment. So if you've got a workers' compensation case, an injury from work, injury, and the statute of limitations on those, Fred's going to talk about that, is a little longer than personal injury. I believe it's 3 years. So could have been hurt a while ago, or maybe you think you have a disease or something caused by your job. This is going to be the guy you want to talk to. Fred is an excellent attorney and is a good friend of mine, and I asked him, and he volunteered to come on and help us with some of those issues. So if you do know somebody with a workers' compensation issue or you have one yourself, call in at 540-0580 in the last 15 minutes, and then from 3 o'clock till 3:45 or thereabouts, we'll leave the lines open so you can call in and talk with Fred and I about those issues. Of course, if you can't call in, we'll put the bonus podcast up and you'll be able to listen to it later. Kathy, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Thanks for being patient.
Hi.
Yeah.
This is Kathy.
What's going on, Kathy?
I'm kind of in a dilemma here. I have a living will, which, the DNR, and I'm also a donor and want to donate my body, whatever med students can do with it. And I don't have any family left. I'm the last of the Mohegans. And I have a friend of mine who is 84 in excellent health, and she is my durable power of attorney.
Right.
And the doctor, she also signed the DNR. My fear is, what happens if I don't have a second to have someone make sure my wishes are carried out, and I don't know what to do.
And that's a realistic concern, and this comes up sometimes when someone wants to appoint someone as a power of attorney who is substantially older than that person, for instance. The question is, will they be around at the time that you need them? And I think that's kind of where you're headed with this.
Right. I mean, I could go get hit by a bus today,
right.
at 59, but I don't know what to do to...
And we can't prepare for every contingency, but usually what we would do in a case like that is there's two different options. One is you can find a lawyer who was willing to sign on as the power of attorney for those purposes. Sometimes, and I know some lawyers that do that. There's also some institutions and some professional guardianship agencies out there who might consider doing that, recognizing that you don't have any next of kin. So there are options. Also, if you know somebody who's younger that you could use as a backup, who's a friend or something.
Well, no one seems to want the responsibility.
Yeah, and that can be a problem. The short answer is we would probably contact a few different agencies and see if any of them wanted to join in on it. If not, I have a lawyer that comes to mind that I think would be willing to do something like that. And then obviously they wouldn't charge a fee unless they had to do some work on behalf of your estate, whether that would be.
There is no estate. I'm disabled and barely making it.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I say estate, it could be the $12 you have in the bank. I don't know, but yeah, there are mechanisms out there. But yeah, that's the thing. You probably could find somebody, and I understand sometimes it's hard to find somebody who's willing to do it. Now, if the doctor knows, and they've got a copy of it, they're probably going to follow it.
She, in fact, witnessed
Yeah.
my advance directive.
Because theoretically, the advance directive should stand alone. It doesn't really need the power of attorney to be honored, although that's nice to have somebody there who can actually say, yes, do it.
Yes.
If there's nobody there, in my experience, the hospital will try to figure out how to get you out of there and get you unplugged because they don't want to pay for it.
Right.
So they will dutifully get the courts involved if there is nobody else left.
Yeah, there isn't.
All right?
Okay, well,
Any other questions, Kathy?
no, I appreciate your answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, take care. Let's see who we got here. Tom.
Yes, Carl.
Yes.
I had a question to my grandson. He's 27 years old now, but he was in some problems when he was a teenager and 19, 20 years old, like DUIs, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And he was taking his license away for 4 years, and he had to pay fines, etc. And he's already accomplished that. He moved out of the state of Pennsylvania, is now living in Florida, and he has taken to get his pilot's license, and he's accomplished the pilot's license. He's got single and multi-engine licenses, and he is now currently flying cargo planes with multi-engines to Bermuda and back. Anyhow, he wants to get into jets,
Okay.
like corporate jets.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to fill out these papers, like, for example, with Delta.
Right.
And he's afraid that he's going to have to admit to DUIs, and he even served a few months in the local jail because of the DUI and what have you. And he's afraid that they might have to go in and do a background check, and he wanted to know if there was any way that they could seal the records or expunge the records, so he could get his jet license.
When was he convicted?
8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah, the short answer is you're not entitled to an expungement unless you are, and we're talking about Pennsylvania convictions, right? You're not entitled to an expungement for a misdemeanor or felony if you're convicted of it or plead guilty to it. You have to get a pardon first, and they tell you to wait at least 10 years post.
Now, if that's as a teenager, does that same thing apply for the teenager?
Well, no, if they're juvenile offenses.
Yeah, yes, he had a couple of them when he was a juvenile.
The next question is: were they juvenile adjudications, or were they just juvenile incidents? Because whether or not they turn up on his record.
Yeah, well, he got a juvenile. He got not possession of dope, but yes, a possession of marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he served 4 or 5 months in the prison. But since then, he's been clean as a whistle. We're so proud of him because he went out and got all these permits and licenses. He's flying daily, and he was a trainer for the airline where he's working, and he's a dispatcher for the airline. And
right.
He wants to, of course, better himself, and so he wants to take up. And he can co-pilot for the single jets,
Yeah, and I don't know the answer though. because if he was actually convicted of it as an adult, that's going to be really simple. The answer on adjudications, and maybe some of the listener out there can help me out on this. I think certain juvenile dispositions are not going to disappear on their own, and others are. And I'm not sure that he can. The juvenile records are somewhat sealed.
Yes.
They're not generally available to the public, but they are available to law enforcement. I know that.
I see, yes.
In Pennsylvania. So the short answer is, if you post that on weekendappointment.com, and I knew if we could find out what his juvenile dispositions were, we might be able to give you a better answer.
Oh, okay. And to make an appointment, is your phone number?
Yes, absolutely.
It's on the internet?
On weekendappointment.com.
Oh, okay.
You can find me there.
Much, Carl.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, take care.
You too. Bye.
All right, folks, the answer is I've got to look that up because different kinds of juvenile dispositions have different rules. Usually what we try to do if we represent a juvenile is get in a situation where they're not adjudicated a delinquent, but instead they withhold adjudication, put them on probation first, and go from there. I'm going to go into break here in a second. We're going to get Fred Haight on the air with us. He's the workers' compensation attorney I've been telling you about. So if you've got some workers' compensation questions, I'm going to want you to call in. And it's going to be 540-0580. And just a little tidbit before I go into break here. I saw that the Icelandic Supreme Court is allowing Bobby Fischer, remember the chess greats, remains to be exhumed to find the answers to a paternity test because there's a woman who apparently purports to be his daughter. And or maybe a girl, I don't know, and they're going to exhume his remains. So I thought that was interesting. Exhumation of remains for determination of paternity have been done, but not impossible. The exhumation cases, by the way, that are famous here in Pennsylvania involve a certain Kennedy who drove off a bridge, and there was a whole bunch of exhumation law that came to light as a result of those lawsuits. 540-0580. I will see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. I've got Fred Haight on the air with me right now. Fred, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, Fred, the music's gone, so now I can hear you a little better, I'm sure. Fred, you are a workers' compensation attorney.
Yes.
Amongst other things.
Among other things.
What is workers' compensation for the folks who don't know?
Well, we've had a Workers' Compensation Act in Pennsylvania since about 1913. What it does is it provides a no-fault method of paying medical expenses and a portion of lost earnings for people who have been injured in the course and scope of their jobs.
And when you say no fault, I guess what that means is you don't have to prove negligence, and the fact that you were negligent really wouldn't be a defense. It's you're entitled to it if you were injured.
Generally speaking, that's true. If an injured worker was required to always prove that the employer was at fault in some way, many injuries would simply go uncompensated. Because a lot of workplace injuries are not the result of negligence; they're just the inevitable part of the job.
And let me ask you this question: what do the employers get out of this system?
What the employers get out of it is immunity from a civil lawsuit and a limitation on the damages for which they can be responsible. An injured worker is cannot recover damages for pain and suffering, for example, from his employer.
Okay.
That's probably the biggest difference.
I've got a couple callers holding, so what I'm going to do is take them. If they've got a question on workers' compensation, I'll let you field it. If it's on something else, I'll let you field it if you want to, or we'll both field it. I don't care. And, of course, I've been telling people if they have a workers' compensation issue or question, now's the time to call. And, of course, they can keep calling from 3 o'clock past 3:30 a little bit, and we'll stay available for them at 540-0580. Mike, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger and Fred Haight.
Hi, Carl. It's a pleasure speaking with you. Hey, my question's work-related. I know the economy is kind of screwy right now, but I've been working and paying into the system since 1974. The last several years, I've been with a union that's local in the area here. 2 years ago, I've been having some health problems the last few years, and finally went to a doctor that was diagnosed with hepatitis C. I have no idea where I picked it up. I don't know. Anyhow, since I've had this, my employer spoke with me, wanted to know what was going on, and I was open and honest with him. Roughly 2 months after I spoke to him, I was off for a while. I was taking treatment, but I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go off the treatment and just kind of wait to see how things panned out with this virus. Anyhow, come back to work. A couple months later, my employer lays me off.
Right.
I have had contractors call me for interviews. Now, of course, I go back to like a labor pool, you know what I mean? And within the union, and a contractor will call it.
Well, we lost him. Well, Fred, I don't know exactly what his question was going to be. I mean, maybe I guess his question was, can the employer not hire him because of his disease? I don't know. I don't know what his question was going to be. Maybe
that would be just speculation. I can think of any number of questions that he might have had. Maybe he'll call back.
Jeff, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger and Fred Haight. What's going on, Jeff?
Yes, I'm from Florida. Well, I moved up here from Florida, but my dad had gotten to a wreck and ended up losing one of his legs. And the day after his wreck, my mom went and bought her a car, or bought them a car, and the same day she co-signed for me a car, but that signing actually fell through, and about a month later, they come back to my dad asking him to sign again, and he was in rehab. And he didn't want to sign, but they told him he had to. Well, at the time, he was on painkillers, and they told him that he had to. And they come to the rehab center and had him sign. Is he still liable? Because the fact he was in rehab, is he still liable? And staying. Well, was he drunk or intoxicated at the time he signed? Yeah, he was on pain medicine. Yes. At the rehab? Yes, sir. Okay. Well, there's a case from law school. They talk about where the guy says, "I was high as a Georgia pine when I signed it," and the question is, I think some level of intoxication or self intoxication or impairment isn't necessarily enough to vitiate a contract by itself. Fred, am I onto something there?
Yeah. There's also the issue of duress. I mean, the caller is saying they told him he had to sign it, but what were the consequences if he didn't sign it?
And so I guess you had possibly two ways to get out from underneath the contract. One is to claim duress. The other is to claim that you were sufficiently impaired and it was obvious enough to the other side that you were impaired. Because it seems to me that was one of the issues is if you walk in and buy something off my store shelf and you're 3 sheets to the wind, but you don't appear to be 3 sheets to the wind, you can't just bring it back just because, you were intoxicated. So there's some aspects there. So the short answer is I guess it would be a very fact-specific question. And we'd probably want the doctor to opine on his condition because, just because you're on pain medicine or otherwise, I'm not sure that that's complete impairment. On the duress issue, I guess what we don't know is what they told him would happen to him if he didn't sign. Yeah. Yeah, well, I know the salesperson said he had to sign because I had moved up to Ohio with the car. And I was going. I told my mom, I said, "Don't sign anything
I'm going to return the car because I wasn't going to be able to pay it. And but she and my dad had already signed, and but I mean it is on record that he was on pain medication.
Yeah,
so.
And like I say, but that's I mean, was he on Vicodin? Was he on Percocet? Was he on oxycodone, or was he just on aspirin? I don't know. And I think that's going to make a difference as to his level of impairment or potential impairment, and the duress issues. So.
Yeah.
Got a fact-specific question there, my friend. I'm going to let you go take another caller here.
Okay.
Let's see, Fred. I've got Mike. Mike, you're on the air with Fred and Carl.
Oh, hey, this is Mike. I called you here a while ago. I lost you.
Yeah, so Mike, wrap that question up. What's the essential question you want to ask us here?
My question is, I'm finding it very difficult to get hired with my skill sets. I've never had a problem before. I feel my prior employer is doing me dirt, and I don't know what to do because I'm getting passed over for a lot of good jobs.
In those situations where you think somebody is bad-mouthing you, sometimes it pays if you can find a friend who's going to, quote, hire you and then calls the other guy up and asks for a reference.
Right.
And see what they're actually saying. And sometimes you find out that they're saying, things maybe they shouldn't be, and sometimes you find out it's not that at all.
So I have a legal leg to stand on. I mean, I've been passed. I've been off for almost a year, and it's frustrating. And I've been passed over for jobs that are what I'm doing, what I've been doing for years now.
Yeah, and of course, there's two other things working against you right now. Is the longer you're off, the more people are like, "Well, this guy hasn't worked in a while," and the other is the economy isn't the strongest it's ever been either.
Right, I understand that. I just got a feeling that somebody's doing me dirt.
All right, Mike, I'm going to let you go.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, thank you. Fred, what we're going to do, if any more folks call in at 540-0580, we're going to take them over the next few minutes. So we're going to go on break here. And 540-0580, you got a workers' compensation question, legal issue, want to know about workers' compensation, please call in because I got Fred Haight with me, and he's going to stay with me. Of course, his bonus podcast will be available on the website shortly after that. And the call lines are going to stay open until at least 3:45. See you next week if you don't stay with us.